Uh, yeah, so good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's meeting of the Investment Subcommittee, which is taking place at County Hall in Field. So the meeting is now live, being broadcast via the County Council, and will be available after the meeting on YouTube, but other social media platforms are available. Can everyone please switch their microphone speaking when you're finished? We've received apologies from Mr. Pipe, Councillor Don. And just want to remind members of the committee that C is 3, so if anyone decides they need make sure there's at least 3 of us still here running. Okay, thank you. So I'm just going to move on to the agenda item, to the minutes of the last meeting, which were held 2nd of October. Want to propose those are taken as read, confirmed, signed. Is everyone in agreement on that? Yeah, that's great. Question time, item 2. Steve, no question. Item 3, which is questions received by members under Standing Order 7.3 and 7.5. Questions. Moving on to urgent items. There are urgent items. Moving on to item 5, declarations of interest in respect of item agenda. Does any member have any interest they need to declare? So moving very swiftly then on to item 6. The next agenda item is the private credit, private debt, which is pages 7 to 58, property recommended investments, which and then I'm going to ask Bilish who will first introduce the report. I'd also like to welcome Sam Hampton and David Walkerton coming to today's meeting as well. So welcome to you both. And Bilish, if you would please do. And Declan as well. So, he's in the corner. He's hiding from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So I'll introduce the first report. It's a combination of the property, private and private equity assets paper. Purpose is to update subcommittee in respect of the review of the fund's property, private debt, and private equity investments. Section up to previous decisions. The annual strategic asset allocation, as you all know, is presented for approval each year and recommends high-level asset allocation changes for the fund where appropriate. The last SAA was approved at the 26th of January 2025, a local pension committee meeting. There were 3 changes highlighted within that paper, which is summarised at the bullet point at 2. Just to summarise really quickly, a reduction to the property allocation to 7.5% from 10%, alongside a review on how to shape property portfolio, and that's included on today's agenda. A reduction in the private global debt allocation from 10.5 to 9.5, alongside a review of the framework for private credit also, and that's also included on today's agenda. Then just to reaffirm, we were holding the 7.5% target private equity, but to consider what the next round of commitments to private equity should be, and that's also today's agenda. Got a summary at point 3 of the fund's position as at the 30th of June. We've got 3 rows which are highlighted on your pack: private equity line, global private credit line, and the property line. So the 3 areas that we're focusing on today. See, the private equity line is showing at the 30th of June a 5.8% position of total fund versus the 7 target. It's about 110, 120 million underweight, and we've got some plans to address that. The global private credit line, likewise, 6.8% versus the 9.5% target, nearly 200 million. Again, plans to address that, including today's agenda. And then finally, property, which is relatively close to its target, just about 30 below. But again, we've got plans to reshape that portfolio and include it onto. Just to confirm that 2 of those frameworks were last reviewed in 2022. So for property and private debt, so it's about time that we do review those. So 3 years on, they're both included on today's agenda. And we do have at point 6 a summary of those frameworks. So we've got a number of tables there, starting with property. It shows you the percentage of the 7.5% that we're targeting to have within property and how it's split. So currently we have bulk of that within the UK, so 40% to UK direct property, 20 via funds, 20 direct, and then we've got an amount with global indirect. And then you've got similar tables for private debt and for private equity also. Noting that the private equity terminology can be a bit more difficult, we've got some explainers at point 7, tells you what life stages are available and what origination means. Any questions at this point before I carry on? And then we've got at point 8 the scope for each of the reviews. So we've got the property scope, the private debt scope, and the private equity scope. We've roughly defined earlier on in this paper what we're planning to do. So reviewing the framework, there are commitments to be made. Should they be sized? If we're changing the framework, how should it be shaped and what? That's the bulk of the work that Hyman's Robinson have been asked to do as part of this review. And at this stage, unless there are questions before we do Hyman's.
Questions or queries? Welcome. All right. Okay, it's noted. Thanks. Just move on then to the presentation then. Thank you. Doing that in private. Okay. So we're just noting this report. Okay. So need to note this report. Agreed. Thank you. So then we just need to move on to item 7, which is sorry, it's a bit off the. Move on to dates of future meetings, which are listed in the agenda. So if you said earlier, mates, there's no items. So we're now going to move to exclusion of press public, which is just going to move the recommendation, which is I move excluded during consideration any item section 172 exempt information. Is that agreed? Agreed. So that brings us to the end of the public part of the stream of the meeting will now end. Just wait for Andrew to confirm.